Hello, and welcome to the What Inspires You podcast. My name is Paul.
And I'm Brandon. Join us as we rediscover wonder through inspiring conversation. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for listening or watching, but mostly listening.
Yeah.
And today we have inspiring things to talk about.
I know I do.
Yeah, I know I do too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't you start, Brandon?
Oh, me? Okay, here we go.
Make you go first again.
That's fine. Yep. I can be the first one. Like Adam was the first one.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a lot of firsts you could draw parallels to. So what are you going to pick?
Well, speaking of Adam, I wanted to ask you a question. If you could choose your spirit animal, what would it be? And maybe you don't believe in spirit animals. Maybe you're like, nah, that's too trendy.
I'll indulge the question.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, for you, Brandon.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do this for anybody else.
I figured.
I hope you know that.
Yeah, I know. I know that you're not a spirit animal guy.
You're asking a lot from a...
My spirit animal is a dark hole.
Yeah, I was about to say you're asking a lot from a depraved soul, but that works too. I don't know. It wouldn't be a trendy animal, that's for sure.
Okay.
It'd be something a little on the...
It wouldn't be like a dog, cat, mouse, like parrot,
rabbit.
It would be like a rare form of a deadly spider.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a wolf either, because that's too
wolves are too trendy.
Yeah, it's like there's just a certain type of people that say wolf.
Yeah,
I'm independent, and fierce.
Yeah,
it's like
I'm a lone wolf.
Yeah,
wolf spirit animal.
Even though the lone wolves are like the ones that are actually deranged, it's like wolves are pack animals and social creatures.
That's right. If you're a lone wolf, you might as well just be like, I'm a sociopath.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like it's definitely it's not as cute as people think it is or whatever. Yeah. Or as
that wolf
poetic.
is alone and depressed. He wants his friends.
Probably has rabies.
It's like probably Maybe they abandoned him for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
A camel.
Camel would be pretty cool.
Giraffe. Alligator.
I feel like I'm taking too long. I just got to go with it.
That's cool. I'm just throwing out things.
Yeah, that's good. There's a lot of animals.
Listen to your spirit. Listen to your inner spirit howl or purr or growl or whatever, There's bears, there's lions, tigers.
Maybe like a kangaroo or something.
Kangaroo? Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Just something that kind of like hangs out and just, I don't know. It's not too concerned with what's going on in the world.
That's good, man.
Have like a ton of predators.
Yeah.
Can fight back a little bit.
Yeah. Kangaroos, man.
Sure.
Yeah, go with kangaroos. That's cool. Okay, cool.
Plus they're ripped.
They do have some good muscles. They have surprisingly a lot of arm muscles.
Yeah. Have you ever seen their pecs?
Yeah, they've got like strangely strong pectoral muscles.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I think of them as like big legs. Mm-hmm. They've also got like powerful tails, which is a weird thing. Yeah, they're very interesting animals.
I watch a YouTube channel where this guy has like a rescue farm and he has a kangaroo that just always fights him wherever he goes and tries to do anything,
Oh.
And so
that's interesting.
Yeah, but he when he wants to move it, he pulls it by the tail.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, just obviously very meaty tails, but doesn't hurt it. But yeah, the thing always just goes up to him, puts its head back and just starts hitting him in the face.
Oh man.
It's like that's annoying to try to get your chores done while that's happening.
Don't get hurt.
Right. Oh yeah, he's always like he shows his arms. He's like, "Hey, I'm bleeding."
Oh wow. Oh yeah. That guy. You've shown me that guy.
Oh yeah. He's like, "I hope it's not infected."
Oh my god.
Like washing his whole arm down with like alcohol. After.
All right.
Anyway,
so that's your spirit animal.
Kangaroo shit.
Spirit animal
Locked in.
That beats up the rescue farmer guy. That's good. Okay, there we go. We got it. Mine's a cat.
Okay.
Just any cat. Big cat, little cat, tiger, lion cat,
nice.
House cat. Just like the cats, There's a lot of personality crossover with cats.
Telling me you're getting a cat?
No, I'm not getting a cat. But what I did want to say is that I'm inspired by animals. That's what I wanted to say, right? And just all umbrella, the whole thing, the whole shebang, right? And I wanted to start that off with Adam because it was which we brought up. But when you think about Adam, I mean, this is the origin story of animals, right? They came out of the earth. God made the flying ones, the swarming ones, the land animals. And I think it's just so interesting that with animals, there was this origin to them where you had like one guy, Adam, who basically had to like name them and almost like index them. You know, it's like, okay, you are like quantifying the animal beasts, the creatures, like they shall pass before you and you shall like make a name for them. And it just seems really interesting to me how animals from their conception had this interactive relationship with humans. And I think it makes me wonder, how far have animals and humans almost like fallen apart in their relationship from the beginning in how God originally created them?
I got thoughts on that.
Yeah, right. Because it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder because there's
nobody likes dogs in this podcast.
I don't like dogs, so you're good. Yeah. See, I won't say anything bad about kangaroos. I just don't want to hear you say anything bad about cats. You can say anything bad about whatever else you want. You know, it's fine. I just don't want to hurt your spirit, you know, your little animal spirit.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, I think about like three kind of stages of the human-animal relationship. I think of like Garden of Eden, where they're passing before Adam. He's like the gardener zookeeper guy, and he's, you know, naming the animals. That seems like a really like powerful relationship. They're all close in harmony. There's peace, you know. That's one stage of human-animal relationship. Then there's post Garden of Eden, pre-flood, so the antediluvian stage, right? So then it's like, what's the animal relationship like back then? Okay, we were sacrificing animals, but it seemed like we weren't really eating animals. There wasn't necessarily like a hostile relationship with a lot of animals, so that's interesting. And then you go post-flood, and there's this interesting little verse in there that's like the fear of man, or like the dread of mankind came onto animals.
That was post-flood?
That was post-flood. Right after the flood, God's like, and the fear of humanity like came onto the animals, which is so weird. So it's like all these animals just like scatter out of the ark, and it's like, oh no, we're totally afraid of you that we just were living with for like 40 days and 40 nights or however long it was. You know? And it just seems weird to me, kind of these three stages of animals sort of getting separated from humanity. But I imagine that back in the beginning, there was this harmony where you could just hang out with animals, and I would assume that there was like a very close bond with humans and animals. I would imagine that. I don't know for sure.
Interesting.
Or at least you could interact in a friendly way. There wasn't like tension, you know?
And people are like trying to get that back in some sense.
Yeah, I think people want it back, you know? At least with dogs and sometimes cats, you know?
And zoos.
Like
you literally like just capture a bunch of animals and keep them close to you.
Yeah. But I just think about like today, we've sort of normalized the taming of certain animals. And I wonder if once upon a time you didn't ever have to tame an animal. It's almost like they already were maybe not tame, but just like acclimated with humans. They didn't have a fear of humans. You know, it's like you could walk over to the wild wolf and it wouldn't just like run away from you or try to eat you. It'd be like, hey, human, like I feel neutral about you. Like,
or it was from Narnia and it said, hey, what's up?
Yeah, that's right. It was like, are you Prince Caspian? Yeah. We're like, yes, and I desire meat tonight.
Oh no!
You gotta wonder, where'd the meat come from in Narnia, you know?
It was all the non-talking.
All the non-talking. Those things weren't even human. Those things weren't even like alive. Anyway. But yeah, so I think about it's kind of that like original state of the animal kingdom, you know, and how it's changed since then.
Yeah.
So that's one of my first thoughts with animals was kind of imagining what animals' interactions might have been like before today. So I was curious for you, do you feel like that's ever something that you're seeking to have some kind of animal relationship? Like if you see a cat, you're like, oh, I want to pet this cat. I want it to like me. Or you're kind of just like, nah, neutral, whatever. Get away from me, creature.
I'm trying to work on my human relationships first and foremost. Once I can get those down, I think, I don't know. To me, that's the priority. But I mean, obviously, the interactions with the animals come easier because it's like there's not really any sort of
drama.
Yeah, or whatever, you know. So I think, you know, obviously people will use animals for kind of like therapy reason or like stuff to even teach people how to have normal relationships again with other people.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, for me personally, I don't have too much interest in animals. Like I think they're super cool and fascinating. And I really appreciate kind of the role they play on Earth. And I think they can provide moments of kind of fun and spontaneity and just interesting things happening around you. But for me, my focus, I guess, with animals is always to keep them in the place where they're not just becoming like attention black holes that just suck up like infinite attention and distract from other things that it might be going on.
Doom scrolling through cat videos on Instagram.
Yeah.
You don't do that?
Well, I mean, you can do it in real life too. You know, it's like it's the baby curse where, you know, someone brings a baby to like a party or whatever, and it's like all the attention, which I mean, they need a lot of attention, obviously, but like, you know, people use it as, I've heard it even described as people use, you know, babies to get out of social interaction with other people. It's like, oh, whenever I'm feeling awkward, I can just go pick up the baby and ignore everybody else, you know? And it's like, because it's this thing that will take up almost as much attention as you give it. It doesn't necessarily need that much attention, but it'll take up almost infinite attention of a person.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of use it as this shield to
the attention shield.
Yeah, to mitigate your experience with the real world, you know, or the world, I guess, at large.
Other humans.
Yeah. Or I mean, just even things you need to attend to potentially, you know. It's like, I'm going to go play with my dog. And it's like, well, you should probably have done laundry or whatever. It's like, you already took your dog for a walk. I don't know. That's just my
it's like how parents will buy an animal because they couldn't create a good relationship with their kids. So then they bought a dog. Or like how people, instead of having kids, will have a bunch of dogs. And it's like, you don't have children, you have like dog children.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. It's like, okay, this is replacing the lack of relationship here.
Yeah.
You know, which I mean, maybe you can't have kids, maybe, you know, whatever it is. I don't want to like totally
throw everyone under the bus.
I don't want to throw everybody under the doghouse, but yeah, you know, I think that sometimes people do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me personally, actually, touching on that, I'll use a Ryan Nemu quote.
Ooh.
He said, I'm sure other people have said this, but he said basically, plants are the new pets and pets are the new kids.
Oh man, that's brutal. Yeah. Yeah, I totally see that.
It's like people used to get pets because they were like easy to take care of. You could like leave on vacation and like just throw some food in their bowl for a couple days or whatever.
Yeah.
And like now you have to like literally
pets are too difficult.
Yeah, pets are very difficult now. You have to like get a, you know, sitter and make sure he gets his 3 meals a day.
It's got to go through dog therapy, speak to its counselor.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
So
crazy now.
Yeah. But yeah, my relationship with pets or animals in general is just trying to appreciate the things they add to the world and keep them in their proper place.
Yeah. Servants to humans. Yes.
Entertainment.
It is interesting how we've taken animals from kind of this lower place to almost elevated above the human.
People have been doing that forever, though.
People have been doing it, yeah.
Think of all the old, cat gods in Egypt.
Yeah, yeah, man. They deserved it though. They were cats. Yeah, you know, worshiping the cows and worshiping, all these animals.
Yeah.
And I mean, today it's like let's elevate the animal above our children or our parents or whatever, and give it a bunch of attention. Yeah, it is interesting how people do that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, giving attention is just a form of worshiping in some sense, you know.
Yeah.
So,
well, excuse me. So one of the interesting things that you brought up here was the therapy with animals. And I think that is really interesting because I've known people who've done like horse therapy or having like, emotional therapy dogs or things like that. And that is really interesting how there's something with animals where they can be like a safe living creature to create some kind of relationship with that'll then help you to like trust other humans again.
Yeah.
Like
this is going to tie in with my topic.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah. So I just find that that's super fascinating. And again, just kind of pulls me back to this idea that, well, what if humans are meant to be in either deeper relationship with animals, or there's something I think that's like healthy when humans are in like a good relationship with animals, or something, there's a balance. Like we obviously were just talking about the imbalance where you have too much relationship with the animals. But I think that if you don't have enough relationship with animals, maybe it could hinder or cause an issue with your relationship with humans, or if you're trying to rebuild those human relationships, starting with animals is like an easy sort of like sub-step up to the complexity of humans, which I think is really fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, because we were even talking a little bit about that before we started filming, was like how difficult it is to even form a human relationship, you know, and all the steps that just are somewhat unintuitive that go into, you know, just having healthy social interaction. But yeah, no, I think, yeah, I mean, are you kind of getting at like what is like a really healthy relationship with an animal look like?
What's the dose of, because I'm imagining again back to this Adam and Eve in the garden scenario where that was like the perfect relationship with animals. I'm just making that assumption. And then how maybe it fell apart after they left Eden, and then it like really fell apart after the flood. So now I'm kind of picturing us currently today as in like a very broken human to animal relationship. You know, like we're kind of afraid of them, they're afraid of us. Sometimes we eat each other. You know, there's all kinds of like disconnect in the relationship. And it's just interesting to observe that and then to imagine and think about what would it be like if we were in right relationship with animals.
Yeah, I think there's like some amount of like symbolism too with like what even an animal means, you know, because it's kind of generalized the way it's spoken about in Genesis, and a lot of that's symbolic in nature. And I think it can have dual realities where it could be both physical and spiritual or symbolic. But like I think the idea of even naming something, it's not like, oh, you'll be a lion and that's how we'll know you from now on, you know? Like the idea of naming is giving an identity to something. So it's like they might have, I mean, you could take I don't know how far you want to take this, but you could even, you know, have it be the idea of, you know, Adam like, is it conferring? Is that the right word? No.
I'm not sure what word you're looking for.
Basically, Adam would be like giving them their personalities.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or like their natures, or like what they're going to act like, or something like that. Or
you
their
shall lick yourself.
Something like that.
You shall roll around in the dirt.
Something like that.
And
yeah.
You will eat you.
Yeah. You're going to be like a very strong, you know, 4-legged creature or something, you know?
Yes.
So or whatever the thing is, or their temperaments or something like that. You know, it's like the idea of naming and giving identity to something. And so it's a way of managing kind of lower intelligences. Not that they're like, you know, lower is bad or there's any sort of qualitative thing on that, but that, you know, you're managing over these other intelligences. And so in that regard, you know, I think it's like when we kind of get back to that state of, you know, right relationship now, I think like as you become just a more balanced human, I guess, like your relationship just naturally restores with animals. I don't know, maybe you've seen people like that where it's like there's certain people that just like have the knack, and they'll just like go out in the woods and like a deer comes up to them or whatever. Or I've been in like a very peaceful state and like a bird just lands on my foot. And it's like, that's weird. You know, like, is it like, I don't know, why does the bird want to be that near to me? You know? It's like, is it because I'm so comfortable in the hammock just reading and, you know, having a zen aura or whatever?
That's one of those things that they capture in like the more European fairy tales and like the Disney movies where there's some wonderful, like totally pure at heart maiden who lives in the forest and sings, and all the animals come to her and are like, we love you. And she's at peace with all animal kind.
Yeah, right.
You know, I can't remember which Disney character that was, one of the princesses, but one of them does it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, like, yeah, I don't know. So I don't know if it's just the case of whatever, but maybe they knew I was like partially vegetarian at the time. So, but, yeah. And I, you know, I mean, obviously probably the deer around here are pretty scared, especially around October.
Yeah, that's right.
But I don't know. It is interesting to build like rapport with animals. And honestly, if you just feed them, they'll be your best friend.
That's right. Food is the secret to their heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what Adam was doing also.
Yeah.
Like after people stopped feeding it. No, I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm just totally off the rails here, but yeah. What do you think like a good healthy relationship with animals looks like?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think that humanity was meant to live along animals, and I think that there's actually, and this is just completely out of Brandon's mind. This is not something I necessarily am like pulling out of a specific verse in the Bible or whatever, but I kind of see humans to animals almost like God to humans, because I see how, just like you described, there's this kind of higher being to a lower being, and the higher being is like to manage over the lower being. Mm-hmm. And I see how now we've created this disconnect between the animals and humans, where the animals are very wild and they're disordered and they're kind of out there doing their own thing. Mm-hmm. They've got the fear of man on them. They don't necessarily believe in God anymore, you know. They're not like they're not friends with us.
They don't believe in the humans.
Believe in the humans. But it's different because in our relationship with God, we were the ones who did wrong, and God is always perfect towards us. Whereas in our relationship to humans, we're still, in humans' relationship to animals, it's like the humans are still the ones who did something wrong initially that brought about the disconnect of the relationship. And it's almost a different relationship where now you have the person who was above who basically created the brokenness within the thing that was below.
Maybe the animals got wild in the ark, and then it was like, oh, maybe, like, no, you're getting kicked out of the ark.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, no parties down there. What are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Quiet down there, elephants. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, I think people have been always the middle point between heaven and earth, you know? And so in that sense, there's intelligences that are higher than humans and lower than humans being animals, you know? So it's like, it just makes sense that if you are the center point, then intelligence or whatever the things are go out kind of infinitely from humans. You know, it's like God is infinitely above and there's things that are infinitely below. You know, like a rock. It's like, what's the intelligence of a rock? Very, very low. And so so it's like, in that sense, I think it makes perfect, because at every scale it works. It's like you think about the microcosm and macrocosm of of organic life, or even atoms and solar systems. It's all working at the same, at different scales, but in the same ways in some sense. So I think animals are just kind of like the step down from people, which is why I think like evolution works as like a image so well. It's like, what do people do when they you either evolve up into a human from an animal, or you devolve into an animal as when you're a
de-evolution.
Yeah, when you're a non-functioning human, people call you an animal,
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah, and that is an interesting thing, how people, it just seems natural to refer to humans as animals if they're not behaving like humans.
Yeah.
They're like behaving without dignity in some way.
Which
use your fork, you animal.
Yeah. Which is a perfect, representation for. It's probably why evolution caught on so well in the 20th century, because like people were like literally just committing mass genocide and doing all these like wild things that had no dignity attached to them. So it's like, of course, people are animals. It's like the parallel is right there. People are behaving like animals, so of course, like in that sense, evolution's true.
Yeah,
like people are animals, and so but it always like makes me laugh when people are like, oh, you see it in nature, so it's just inherently good. Animals are doing it, so it's inherently good.
Yeah,
like you haven't watched enough crazy nature videos on Instagram yet.
Yeah. The father lion is eating his young because he's hungry and too lazy to go out and find food. As it is in nature. It's like, whoa, dude, that's super messed up. Like, that's not.
It's like, why are you using your animals as like your higher purpose?
We are above the animals, whether you believe in evolution or not or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, there's no way to get around. We are above the animals. There's no way you can get away from that. And I don't think
you don't want to use that as your gold standard.
Yeah, we can't use them as the gold standard if we are the pinnacle of living creatures.
Yeah, he's taking his mate against their will. It's like, oh no, that's not good.
There's a lot of unethical things that happen in the animal world.
Right?
They did not take ethics class.
No. But then they take like the one example of like a monkey giving a puppy a hug, and they're like, see, isn't nature beautiful?
That's right.
It's like,
it's because the trainer both gave them treats.
Yeah. And the monkey's softening the dog up so he can abandon him somewhere and get social credit with their monkeys.
That's right. Oh man.
I don't know.
Oh, gosh. Vicious, wild animals.
Right. Yeah. Oh, no, I mean, there's beautiful things that happen in nature, obviously, but it's when people project like human emotions onto like what's going on that it gets a little weird.
Yeah. can't you see that my puppy loves me? Oh, it's hungry.
Yeah, it just knows you've.
It knows that you're the one who gives it food.
Exactly.
From the moment it was born.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
And there might be like some joy, there. Obviously, I don't want to take that away from people, but it's not all just cold hard numbers and whatever. But yeah, that's something I've always wondered. Kind of, it's like, what is instincts, or what is the idea of instinctual? Is that like something that's just programmed? Is it, all these kind of things? But that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, the free will versus instinct kind of idea. Yeah, it's like, are animals just predestined by their instincts? Who even knows? Yeah.
Yeah, because that question's already hard in humans, but then in animals, it even goes to like the next step where, yeah, anyway, yeah. I've always called them the most advanced AI on the planet.
And most advanced AI, literally A for animal intelligence.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's start our own AI company called Animal Intelligence.
We train service dogs or something.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know. Oh man, we're gonna reprogram your animals.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah. So animal relationship with humans. I think that's super interesting. Thinking about what would the world be like if we had right relationship with animals. I think that would be fascinating.
Yeah.
Another question along the animal thing. Do you think that animals ever could talk? I mean, parrots can talk.
It's true, right?
There's the snake in the garden. It could talk. Balaam's donkey talked to him. I was
just going to say that one, yeah.
Yeah. It's like sometimes animals are talking. There's a lot of Instagram videos of people where they're like singing a song and their dog is kind of, their husky is sort of singing it with them, It's like,
I don't think so.
I don't know. You don't think so?
I mean, what does it mean to talk?
That's a good question.
Like, can they mimic sound? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can they know what they're doing? I mean, yeah, they can know what they're doing, but can they like step outside that and have like an objective idea of what they're doing?
Yeah, like does the parrot actually know what it's saying to the human?
I don't think so.
Like does it know the phrase and says it in the appropriate way? I don't know.
Yeah. And that's not to bring it back to AI.
Yeah.
It's like that's the problem everyone's running into, it's like they get all these repeatable responses for different prompts and stuff like that. But then at the end of the day, they're like, well, oh shoot, it's not actually conscious of what it's doing. So it's like you can prompt it in a certain way to get a certain response, but that doesn't equate to the kind of intelligence we have where we can understand the broader context of what we're doing and the behaviors we're doing. So yeah, I think that's for speaking, that's a pretty basic requirement, I would say.
Yeah.
So
okay, another question.
Do you think?
Oh wait,
I gotta hear what you think now.
Oh no, I don't think they legitimately talked. No. Okay. Yeah, I mean either the serpent in the garden was really a spirit, and so it had some magical spirit powers that allowed it to talk.
A snake.
It was possessing a snake. It just took the form of a snake, whatever it was, or it was allegorical in some way, and it wasn't a real snake. But I don't know if I could believe that there was. Like all the animals in the Garden of Eden, like were they actually talking? I think that'd be cool.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
So would C.S. Lewis.
Yeah. Well, but see, then it gets really weird because then if they're talking, you have to ask the question, well, are they sentient beings? Are they like intelligent with sort of the same soul aspects of like a human being? In which case, then it gets really weird when God's like, sacrifice them for your sins. And it's like, are we just like sort of, is this almost comparable to like human sacrifice?
Yeah, right.
It's like, then it gets really weird.
Yeah.
It's like, kill the goat and eat it.
Yeah. Find the youngest one you can.
Yeah. It's like child murder.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Yeah, I don't think they're on the same level as people, obviously.
Yeah.
And obviously people don't think, I mean, some people do, but a lot of people don't think that or else we wouldn't be eating meat.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Okay, wait. Next question with the animals here. I'm trying to think about animals that have very, how should I say it, useful existences. Okay. And I mean useful to humans. Okay. So I'm thinking about like horses, the ox, the dogs,
dogs are incredibly useful, but people don't really.
Yeah, dogs are useful.
Yeah.
Cows, goats, sheep, there's all kinds of like all your farm animals. There's tons of animals that have a lot of utility to the human species.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that it just happens that we've learned as humans to like cultivate the uses of these animals? Or do you think that God literally made those animals to be like, you shall serve the humans and produce milk and eggs for them? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Because it's like you wouldn't necessarily like go get a lizard and be like, I'm a lizard farmer. That like they produce lizard eggs that we eat. You know, it's I mean like there's some animals where it's like I don't even know how you're useful to us. Like there's not really anything we want to do with you. You're just cool. You exist. But there are some animals that's like, ooh, that's valuable. Like we could use that animal for like a lot of different things, and we buy those animals and we do stuff with them. You know?
I think a lot of animals are actually really useful, but they're not utilized, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So I think a lot of I just don't think people are that creative.
Okay.
or we've come up with a lot of industrialized solutions to things that animals would solve.
Okay.
And so I think that's actually where animals really play a crucial role in like this symbiotic relationship, is managing the environment.
That's interesting.
And so like
yeah, they help us with the gardening.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing better at regulating an environment than a healthily balanced ecosystem with like all the right animals and plants. And so I even think of something like bats. It's like we all hate pests, right? And so some people go spray their ponds with like crazy chemicals. It's like if you just actually had bat houses like on your property or whatever, and like made places for bats to live, like they would just naturally live there and take care of a lot of your pests.
Yep.
So, I'm thinking of that lizard, it's like in a warmer climate, you might have nasty spiders around. It's like, what's the lizard like? Spiders, you know? So, so I think a lot of these animals are really good at managing their environment, or, through fertilizers, through providing just direct resources through eggs or milk or whatever. Goats with land management, like clearing, grasses and stuff like that. They can clear poison oak. It's like, what a great thing.
That's actually very useful.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting.
So, and supposedly, I don't know if it's true. I've heard a long time ago, but if they're eating poison oak, and you drink the milk, you kind of start to gain immunity to poison oak as well.
That's interesting.
So, yeah, and who knows what kind of like microbial benefits as well, and they actually recommend for people with, I don't want to get this wrong, but I think it's like people that are trying to build up their immune system. They recommend they get dogs.
Really?
Like if you can't go outside, you get a dog that can play outside.
They'll bring the infections to you.
They'll at least bring the microbiome.
They'll bring the fleas and the
yeah. So if you're more like bound inside or to a chair or something like that, you want like a dog that goes and plays and rolls around outside to like come and lick you and just hang out and pet and stuff for just microbial reasons.
Yeah, that's interesting, man.
Yeah.
Huh.
And you're not going to get that from your Boston Dynamics a dog robot necessarily.
Robo-dog? Yeah.
Robo-dog, yeah.
So you're saying that like all animals are useful. We just are not creative enough to utilize all their usefulness. We've just sort of like capitalized on a few sort of easy to figure out animals, but there's other ones that we could be using. Yeah,
so I think a perfect world has full integration of animals into your daily life in a useful way. And it's like, I don't want to compare them to kids necessarily, but I'm going to.
Okay.
It's like, the idea of kids just being like little lops that hang around until they're 18 is like, that's the idea. That's an equivalent to like, just a pet, like an animal that's just a pet, right? It's just like something that sits around and like, it provides a little bit of joy or whatever, but like a fully integrated child is someone that's productive to the family, that becomes productive to society, and like, works and like is producing.
But instead we've turned our children into pets. And so then when we have bad relationship with our children, we get rid of them and we get pets instead.
We send them off to college.
Send them off to adult daycare.
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
And you send them off to normal daycare during school hours. So
yeah.
So yeah, I think like, they like anything that's integrated should serve a function and should enhance the space they're in, right? It's not just a deficit or, takes up resources or whatever. It's like it should actually produce more than it's consuming. And to me, that's the idea of abundant life and a perfect world.
Yeah. You're making me think how much we have taken ourselves out of nature, the earth is nature. And we have essentially taken ourselves, like within planet Earth, I mean to say, we have essentially taken ourselves out of the nature, like out of the natural of the world. And we create houses and buildings and roads and artificial things and clothes and all of our stuff.
Yeah.
And so we have actually lost the integration on our end. And that has disconnected us a lot from the, ecosystem of animals. Like animals probably could be serving a lot of these functions for us if we were living with them more, but we have chosen to live away from them and separate ourselves.
Or have weird relationships with them.
Yeah. And so because of that, we're not getting the full utilization of different animals.
Totally.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at a lot of ocean ecology and stuff like that. It's just massively regulated by corals and fish and all these different things that are just so good at doing exactly what we need them to do. And it's like they're perfect for it. All you have to do is not overfish and not, pour
gasoline on it.
Yeah, pour chemicals in the water, and they'll literally like just take care of it. And I think that's what people miss out, because it's like, well, I think people have a good intuition when they say like, oh, nature just takes care of itself, and to some extent it does, but so that I think that intuition is there, that the animals are going to contribute to like keeping the world running. But I think it works even better when humans are at the forefront of that, and managing environments and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because I always think about it. I look at, kind of the wild land of Idaho, right? And it's like, it works. Like, it's going to function. It's going to go on without humans, but it's kind of like miserable to be in. It's like, it's very thick, thick brush, and the trees are falling over everywhere, and there's dead stuff everywhere. And it's like, it's kind of like the wild wasteland. It's not that pleasant, at least for people. And obviously you got to be, you're human centric when you look at the world. But, I think if you're just going to place an objective quality on that, like, it's not the best it could be. Obviously we have to look at things through the lens of humans again. So just objectively for humans, it's not the best it could be. I think when you really see like cool nature, it's when it's been maintained. It's when it's, people are actively taking a role in transforming the nature, planting certain things that like to be together. It's like you're kind of offering this guiding, helping hand.
Yeah.
You're not taking out the nature, you're not ripping it out, but you're guiding it the whole way. You're introducing things that like go well together. And obviously got to be careful with that. People introducing mongooses to whatever Hawaii to get rid of the snakes.
That gotcha.
Kills all like the birds and reptiles.
Oops.
So it's like, and again, I don't know, like, I think there's a difference between trying to correct problems by changing nature and trying to like enhance nature, but that's another topic. But yeah, I think the best spaces are the areas where people have taken a guiding hand and worked with animals and nature to create just amazing spaces.
Yeah. I'm thinking of like gardens or parks, or even on a bigger scale, like a national park.
Yeah.
Where you've got rangers and they're like managing the animals and the wildlife and the plants and everything. And that's really cool. Huh. It's an interesting thought to think about.
So to me, that's the ideal situation. And not that it just has to be like zero buildings or whatever. It has to be all nature, but I think there's really cool ways to integrate even modern living into nature spaces. Have you ever seen like kind of these like houses that are all built around like a garden area?
Oh yeah, I have seen that.
Yeah. Stuff like that's pretty cool.
That is a cool idea.
Yeah,
like a lot of times we have sort of these blocks of neighborhoods with like roads around them and maybe a park next to it. But it's like, what if the park is in the midst of the houses, like a big conjoining backyard kind of thing? Or those are cool ideas.
Yeah. So just integrating all those things together, it's like great, I think. And when you do that, it's like if you build a space, it's kind of like what was the quote? If you build it, they will come. It's the same thing with animals. And in these spaces, like you don't really have to go out and find the animals and capture them and put them in these boxes or whatever. But if you build certain environments, the animals just naturally like know to go there and be there because it suits all their needs. So a lot of times when people are trying to get specific species into places, they'll plant different trees, or they'll, have certain bushes, or a significant amount of cover from the sky so the animals don't get taken out by hawks or whatever, So it's like they build these things that animals prefer, and then those animals will just show up.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That's cool, man. It's cool. Animals for you.
Yeah.
There you have it. Go pet a cat.
Yep.
Become a kangaroo.
Bounce around between ideas.
If you have dogs, think about your insecurities.
Jeez.
Go see a therapist. I don't know. I'm sure you're fine with your dog. It's okay.
The therapist will recommend you a service dog.
But I'm a cat person, so it's a
little feisty.
A little feistiness going on between me and you dog people.
There you go. Nice save. So my topic, since we were talking about interactions with animals, is authenticity.
Ooh, okay.
And so I've been just kind of thinking about it in terms of, as I'm switching up careers and stuff like that, working with kids with special needs. Dude, they're some of the most authentic people I've ever met. And it's really refreshing. Yeah, I've always liked authenticity, but it feels like it's hard to find. But now that I'm kind of working this job, it's like, man, I'm finding it very, very often. People, because go ahead.
I was going to say, they just tell you that they don't like something.
Yeah, they tell you they don't like you.
I don't like you as a friend.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a bad friend.
It's like, hey, that's great feedback.
Give me my snack bar. No, I hate you.
Yeah, it's great feedback because then you know how, where everyone stands and how to improve for the next interaction. Yeah. Like, okay, I'll give you your snack sooner next time. That's fine. I can do that.
Yeah.
It's measurable. I can work with that. You just are pouty and whatever. It's like, I can't do anything with that.
Yeah. There's action steps here.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was kind of wondering, like what leads to authenticity between people and interactions. And I was like trying to, I was just wondering why that is, it's like, why are these, people much more authentic? And to me, it seems like a lot of it has to do with kind of culture and the lack of cultural, I don't know, like influence in some sense. It's like, they're not just, a lot of these kids aren't super worried with like what's trendy or, what's, how their peers interact or whatever, it's like they're very much individuals who are just kind of living out what they're experiencing. And, obviously there's, upbringing and stuff that they've been exposed to or trained in, already that plays a part. But for the most part, they're pretty much just like, in the experiences I've had, just living out what they're feeling, what they're thinking without much reservation.
Yeah. It's an interesting point. I mean, I think humans are very authentic, just naturally. Like they do just express whatever they think or they want from like from an early age.
Oh, from an early, yeah.
Like I think naturally we're that way, but I think that we get trained out of that because when you see somebody and you're like, you're fat and ugly and you stink.
Your mom's like, no.
I hate little Billy across the street. I hate that guy. It's like whenever you say those things, that's when your mom is like, no, we don't say mean things like that.
Like covering your mouth like, ah.
Yeah, like I think your authenticity gets like killed with politeness and the social norms of formality and things like that. Like I'm just thinking about birthdays or Christmas where a lot of times parents will say that line of, okay, make sure you say thank you, and it doesn't matter if you don't like it. You just need to be nice to everyone, Yeah,
it's like literally teaching your kid to lie.
Yeah, it's like, let me teach you how to lie. Lie to grandpa. It's like whatever.
And Grandpa probably knows you're lying to him, but then he goes along with it anyway, and it's like, oh, thank you.
I gotta share a quick story. I remember, I think I was like 10 or something. It was Christmas, and my mom like really instilled that in me before we were get to go open presents. Like, it does not matter if you like it or not. Just be nice to everyone. Like, just say thank you. And it was really like in my brain. And opening the present, it was like the only thing I could think of was like just saying that, just be nice afterwards. And so I remember unwrapping a gift.
Yeah.
And I held it up and I said, "Oh my gosh, it's what I've always wanted." What is it? It was so contradictory, you know? And it was like, I totally lost. Everybody knows that, like, oh, he's just saying the nice thing, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like I worked so hard on, like, I have to have a good reaction afterwards. And I was like thinking about it. It's like I lost all authenticity.
Yeah.
And instead, I just like had this, like, yeah, lots of enthusiasm.
Like, what
and
does
then
your child want to be when he grows up? An actor.
And then it's like that authenticity hits back again, and it's like, I have no idea what this thing is, you know?
Yeah, you can only suppress it for so long.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's hilarious. That's a good one.
It was like a bug catcher.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Huh.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, you get trained from a young age to kind of, you know, and that's a cultural thing, you know? It's like in other cultures, even politeness looks different in different cultures. So it is a trained cultural thing depending on what you're brought up with, but yeah, I don't know. And it's there's so many walls that people have, man. It's like, it's crazy. I noticed it as, I mean, I've noticed it my whole life, but it's like you'll just be talking to people, and I mean, obviously there's like appropriate levels of things to discuss, or vulnerability to work into, but even just at a basic level, people have so many walls, that's why you get all these conversations of like, hey, it's nice weather outside. Yeah, it is. It's like that's a cultural script to kind of keep your walls up. And
there's like acceptable questions to ask people in social interaction, you know.
Yeah. And so I'm just like, I'm just very refreshed, honestly, to have like nice authentic interactions that are like very candid and very as far as I don't know, it's just, it does good for the soul.
Okay,
I'll say that.
Yeah
And say,
are there any like specific,
you got something on your nose?
I got something on my notes. Are there any specific
you're good.
Are there any specific, I see I'm a cat.
Our furry demographics going up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we got a lot of furries in the audience. What was I gonna say?
I don't know.
With the special needs kids and the authenticity coming from them, is there any like specific things they've said, or like any examples of they say something that you're like, oh wow, like that's not something people would normally ask or say to me or whatever?
I think a lot of it's just the abruptness with, like, they'll just be, maybe someone's doing a task and it's like, I'm done with this.
Oh yeah,
it's like just full stop, done with it, and it's like, okay, like we're done with that.
Yeah.
That's fine, or so that's kind of an example of that. Maybe like,
because that's a whole social interaction with people, is when somebody's like, oh, are you ready to go? Or, oh, you're done watching that movie? Or do you want to watch it? I'll watch it if you watch it. Yeah, we could both.
Exactly.
We could both do that together. Yeah.
You gotta like let people down when you're ending an activity.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm feeling a little tired for this, or I'm feeling a little, burnt out.
We would love to stay, but our baby. And we have to go.
Yeah.
And people have all these weird,
it's on your shoulder.
Weird, like, I got a bunch of weird things on me right now. But people have all these like strange excuses to create like a polite exiting of something. You can't be at like family Thanksgiving and just be like, I want to leave now. We've only been here for like 20 minutes. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done with Thanksgiving with you.
Yeah.
Like,
I had my conversation I wanted to.
This is your family, so I
ate
think
my turkey. Like, what else is there to do here?
Oh, there's more pie? I'll stay for pie and then I'm leaving. It's like, you can't just say that, It's like everybody in your family will hate you.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Maybe they won't. I don't know. Like nobody tries it, Like everyone just, I mean, there's a perception that you'll be seen as rude. And sometimes, like, I think obviously there's good tact, but like if you just said it in a funny way or whatever, like, hey, I'm around for the pie, like whatever, as long as you're not like personally insulting someone, like I'm trying to get
Right.
away from Aunt Susan, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, you know, or whatever. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I think my family definitely knew that when I was in my early 20s, like after I turned 18 and I didn't live with my parents, it's like I would come to family things because there was free food there, you know? Like I think they all knew that. Oh, well, Brandon will be by. How do you know? Because there's dinner. It's like,
yeah. They don't even like text you inviting you. They're like, hey, come, there's turkey.
Food
You're
at this place at this time.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'll come.
Speaking his language now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Did they love you any less because of that?
No, I don't think so. I think they just accepted that was the stage of life I was in, that I was young and hungry.
Not a lot of money.
It's like, he's a young man, doesn't know how to cook for himself.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I think if you can just take those honest responses and temper them with like good manners, then like I think you're gonna have really quality interactions.
Yeah.
And really like good relationships. Because, you know, so much of what people do is and probably why people are so socially drained all the time is because it's like a dance. Every time you try to have an interaction with somebody, it's like, where do they stand? Where do I stand? You know, it's like, are we really good friends now? I think we're good friends. I hope they think we're good friends, but I'm not going to ask them. You know?
You know, I've thought about that before. It's like I wonder if people just get socially drained because they're drained from the lack of authenticity, and so then they get like bored from the conversation. Whereas sometimes you're in conversations that really excite you.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's the difference? Did you just take a nap and you had a protein shake? Like, what was it that excited you before for that conversation?
Yeah.
Is it just that the conversation was something very interesting to talk about and you felt really authentic and engaged with the person? You know, it's like I want to do a social experiment. It's like, here's authentic conversations in group A and here's like non-authentic conversations in group B. What's everyone's energy level at the end of the conversation?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think most of the time, I think there's some people that just aren't compatible.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like if both people are being authentic, you're going to get a really good interaction.
Yeah.
And for me, I know I get way more energized. Like I can, you know, be even in a low energy state, go have a really good, authentic conversation. It lifts me up.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, okay, cool. Like even, it doesn't even have to be like intellectually stimulating necessarily, but it's like somebody that sees you, that acknowledges you, that kind of like takes the time to, you know, speak about themselves in an honest way. Like you just walk away being like, oh, the world's a good place. You know?
Yeah.
Like I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
And so whatever that feeling is afterwards, that's to me, it seems like the goal of, maybe not the goal, but the product of authenticity is like the world feels like a friendlier, nicer place.
Yeah.
So
have you ever had this experience where you go traveling and you just feel like you really connected with some random person you met unexpectedly on the road?
Yeah.
Like you sit next to somebody on the bus or the train, or you're like, oh, I happen to be going the same direction as you. And then you talk to them for like 3 hours and it was like, wow, this was a great conversation with like Mr. You know, random person. Like I really feel like I connected with that person, but I'll never see them again.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've had those experiences?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's common. It's the traveler's syndrome or whatever.
Yeah. I've always associated that with two people who know that they'll probably never see each other again in their lives and therefore willing to be very vulnerable. You know, if you ask a question, it's like, well,
this is the Love is Blind show or whatever.
I don't know about that.
Or they like, I don't know, separate people and have them like talk without seeing each other or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe something like that.
Some amount of anonymity.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's like if there's no consequences and I can just say whatever I want, then I'll just say whatever I feel like saying right now.
Yeah.
And then because you're being so real, the other person's real.
Yeah.
And they just say whatever they want.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, wow, you like really connected in a great way.
Yeah.
If only you could do that with everyone in your life.
Right.
You know, like your family insecurities or whatever the thing is, you know?
Yeah.
It's like whatever that stuff is, you never want to tell the other people in your family.
It's so liberating.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, you know, once you do that, it's like, again, you see like what's a good relationship between animals and people. It's like it should be harmonious and symbiotic, you know, and it's like that's how relationships with people can be too. You know, it doesn't like all this negative stuff we ascribe to interaction. It's like doesn't have to be there. It's like, yeah. So yeah, I don't know, man. like it definitely inspires me to try to carry that into my life more. And I don't know, how many people do you feel like you can be like pretty authentic with, and like, or maybe like a percentage, not like an exact number.
I don't know, how many subscribers do we have?
There's 8 people in the whole world that I can share my deepest, darkest thoughts to.
Oh man.
I hope your wife's subscribed.
Depends how many likes we get. Yeah, I don't know if she's subscribed. I don't know.
Help our algorithm, please.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Excuse me. No, it's a good question. Yeah, how many people can you be authentic with? You know, I think the other thing, just kind of on the opposite side of that traveling thing, is the more you get to know people, I feel like sometimes there's a weird, almost inverse of authenticity, where like the closer you are to somebody, you either become really authentic because of that closeness, or there's almost this like, I don't want to be authentic because now I don't want to lose this closeness with this person. You know, like how parents and children may not be super authentic with each other, or how you might have like a business relationship with somebody, and the more you work together, the less authentic you want to be because you don't want to like step on toes and ruin the relationship in some way, you know?
That's a great observation.
And I've always wondered, how do I take people who are really close to me and almost like break the ice to become more authentic with these people so that I have more authentic relationships in my life? It's like, how do you do that without creating some kind of hostility or burning a bridge or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know exactly how to do that, you know? I don't know.
Well, to me, it kind of strikes me as something like, if you haven't experienced a lot of unconditional love, or acceptance, maybe, it's like those are very scary areas to tread in, because it's like those things are kind of predicated on, if I do, you know, this thing, then the relationship's over. And yeah, I don't know like how you get around that exactly. I think marriage is like a nice way, because you're committed. So it's like, well, I'm going to show you some things that, you know, you're hopefully being committed means you don't run away from, but you know, it's like, you're going to see parts of me that, like, you know, I don't like, or whatever, you obviously don't like, or whatever, but we're committed, so let's work through this. And I think it's hard because you don't really get that in just friendships, you know. It's like, you can't like be like, I'm gonna sign my friend contract, you know, like I'm gonna tell you some things or whatever, and you know. So I think with friendship it's hard because you just never know, and people are, I don't want to say fickle, but you know, it's like you don't want to misplace that trust, I guess.
There's very few relationships where the nature of the relationship, the dynamic of it, is such that nobody's going to walk away from each other regardless of different like offenses or belief systems or whatever, you know. Like, I think marriage is one of those where theoretically in marriage it's supposed to be such that, oh, you don't like cats? Fine, I guess I'm still married to you even though you don't like cats. Ugh. You know? Or I'm also thinking of like the military, where if you've got your like little squad of people, it's like, I don't care if you voted for so-and-so, just drag me off the battlefield when I have a bullet in my leg. Like, it doesn't matter who you voted for, you know?
Different set of binding principles.
Yeah, it's like, oh, well, who cares that we're all like have, you know, everything's at odds, and, you know, nothing within our group is like, you know, in
you need
common.
Something to like trump the lower differences or something like that.
Yeah. It's like, once you have this commitment that you're all going to bind to, you can be open about all your differences and your offenses and, you know, your true nature, because you know those people are still going to be with you, and they're still going to like do their job, and you're going to still do your job, you know.
I mean, you'd hope the binding agent would be that we're all children of God.
Yeah,
but that doesn't seem to be enough.
You'd hope that it would just be that, like, well, I'm a human being and you're a human being, and I just like to love you well enough to care for your needs, even though I hate everything you believe in.
Yeah, we're sharing this planet together, you know. Like,
that would be nice if it was that way.
Yeah,
but instead it's more like, you don't also eat fried chicken? I don't talk to you anymore. You don't like dogs?
People.
Yeah, I probably made some people unsubscribe today because I'm so into cats and I'm not a dog person. They're probably like, well, he doesn't like dogs. Shh, Hate that guy.
Yeah,
Mean
right.
YouTube comments.
I've gotten that comment a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, and then so I guess the thing too, it's like, there's that aspect of vulnerability, but then like authenticity is almost like a different side of that coin where it doesn't take two people to be authentic. Like for you to be authentic,
Right, right.
So it's like you can still be authentic without being vulnerable or sharing vulnerability maybe.
Yeah, yeah. You can be authentic and the other person doesn't have to be authentic. They can be fake if they want to be. They can put up walls, but you can still be the real you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, do you think there's even a difference between authenticity and vulnerability? Because like vulnerability to me like makes it seem like, how much of your inner self do you want to share? Authenticity could be like the true expression of how you go about sharing that to some extent. It's like,
yeah, I could see that. Yeah, like vulnerability is I'm going to share, well, how do I say this without just saying share something vulnerable? I'm going to share something that's like deep, something scary, something that you could use against me. Like this is something that's dangerous material. Authentic doesn't always have to be something vulnerable. It just needs to be something that's very true. Like it's not fake. That's what I'm thinking of with authentic.
Yeah. And so it's like if you're, you can be wise about your vulnerability, but be authentic about how you approach that, So it's like, I'm not necessarily in a place to share, this deep thing with this person, but I'll tell them that, like through authenticity, I'll say like, I'm not ready to share that with you in a very blunt way or in a nice way, Yeah. Or it's kind of like, I think it maybe even goes hand in hand with knowing yourself a little bit and being able to just accurately speak to like where you are in some sense. And I think that's what I get from like, these kids. It's like they're very in tune with what they're feeling or, it's like there's not a lot of, I mean, not necessarily always in tune, but like, a lot of times when they are in tune, they're not afraid to share it. And so like it takes that, and you might get them to check in and be like, how are you feeling right now? And then they'll be like, they're going to answer very honestly and accurately. And so, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe it goes hand in hand with like, the more you can know yourself, the more authentic you can be, I guess. Well, I guess that's not even true because you could just say, I don't know how I'm feeling right now. And that's pretty authentic.
I mean, I almost see it more as when you're not afraid of the other person. And hopefully, the more confident you feel in yourself, the less afraid you would be of the other person. I think a lot of times what scares us about other people is that we feel insecure about ourselves. Like, well, that person's so smart and I'm not very smart and I don't want them to know that I'm not very smart, So it's like we're scared of the other person because we're scared that they'll realize like the truth about us, but it's like a perceived truth, It's like maybe that's not even real. And then it's like, even if they did know that like, well, your test scores were like way lower than mine, it's like, doesn't guarantee that they're suddenly going to treat you bad. It's like, you just assume that about them. Like, who knows? Maybe they'll be like, okay, whatever. Like, I don't even care.
Yeah. So it's like the more secure you are as a person, the more authenticity you can have.
Yeah. Like one thing with the intelligence thing again is just because I'm a teacher. So it's like, I see people of varying degrees of academic capacity and test scores and all these different things. And I got to say, the people who are the smartest seem to be the most willing to be like vulnerable with their lack of intelligence. Like it's the people who are the doctors, the PhDs, the people who studied something forever, where you ask them a question and they're the ones who are like the most willing to say like, oh, great question. I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah, that is in my field of study, but I actually don't know the answer to that because they don't feel insecure about their intelligence. They're like, I don't need to make something up. Like, I know I'm smart. I know everybody in this room knows that I'm smart. I don't need to sit here and pretend like I'm smart. Like,
that's why I did 8 years to get this MD next to my name.
Here's my smartness badge.
Yeah.
Put it right next to my first aid badge on my Boy Scout sash.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, it's when people aren't very smart or they don't feel confident in their intelligence, I should say it that way, that they want to prove something, they get angry, they get frustrated, they're scared of the crowd, of the people or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, ooh, you didn't feel good with your own level of intelligence, and
well, then that leads to inauthentic behavior to
right.
compensate or hide your test scores or, or whatever. Like, yeah. have undue pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been on both sides, you know, it's like I've been on the place where it was like, I don't know this very well. And I feel really nervous because I'm talking with somebody who I know knows it and they're smarter than me. And I don't want to admit that I don't know that. And then I've been in the place where it's like, I know everything about this topic. And somebody asked me one little question I kind of don't know the answer to, like, whatever. I don't know. I don't even care.
That first example, when you're having that conversation with that person, it's like probably something feels off in that interaction, you know, where it's like, you might not be able to put your finger on it, but it's like that breaks down a little bit of connection you could have with that person, you know, when you're being inauthentic and trying to hide something. And it's like, oh no, like, you know, you just walk away feeling a little bit more drained probably from that interaction or conversation than you would have otherwise.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. That's my pitch to everybody to be more authentic. Start your own podcast and
well, so
no, I don't know.
I think there's another thought I need to have with the authentic is like, yes, people should be more authentic, but how do I want to say this? Because if we were just letting our authenticity out all the time and we had like no fear of social repercussions, it's like people would say rude, mean things to each other all the time, you know? Like people wouldn't really refrain from saying something that would be mean. And sometimes the truth needs to be said and the truth hurts and people need to hear it and they need to say it. And too many people have like been polite and babied and pandered to somebody. But there's a lot of things that just don't need to be said. It's like you really don't need to have everybody tell you their opinion on your appearance all day long. You're like a 4, man. You're not even a 4. You're like, you just are ugly. Like, I would never date you. You know, I mean, you don't need people to say that for no apparent reason. Like, you just walk down the street and somebody's just like, you're ugly. You know, it's like, I don't need your opinion. I wasn't asking. Like, that's authenticity I did not want. No, thank you. You know, it's like, I guess it's kind of that question of like, where's the, like, we want to be authentic, but then there's also the knowing of the appropriate time to be authentic, you know?
Sure.
Because I'm just thinking about kids with special needs, like they're really authentic, but they may not always know the appropriate timing for their authenticity. Like they may not know that like now is a moment to be really authentic, and now is a moment where like how I don't need to say this. This is like an unnecessary authenticity. Like nobody's asking me for this authenticity. This doesn't benefit anybody for me to like just say what I'm thinking in my head right now or whatever, you know?
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Like I think it comes down to more subjective authenticity than objective. Like if somebody made pie for you and it was like, here's my homemade pie, and you just were like, I hate this pie. It's like, well, okay, you didn't have to say it like that. You could have been like, it's not really my pie. You know, like, oh, it's not really the flavor for me. Like, there's a nice way of being authentic, and there's like a very blunt, sort of rude way of being authentic, you know? And so I think that's what I'm trying to get at is how do people, how do people know how to withhold the sort of rudeness of authenticity and know when to say it at the appropriate time without going too far into the now you're just being polite and fake again, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's that's a tricky balance that people, I don't know if I have figured out. Like, I don't, you know,
totally.
That's another sort of authenticity dilemma, I think.
I think, it's a lifelong journey to kind of walk that fine line. But I have a couple thoughts. I think one, that if the person who's receiving the authenticity, let's say, is more secure, then like someone can call you ugly and it's like, okay, that's just your opinion, man. you know, or whatever, you know, it's like, that doesn't, like, it's not a nice thing to say, but it's not going to ruin my day or anything. You know, it's like, whatever, maybe you've come to grips and like, yeah, I'm not the best looking, but you know, it's fine. I'm married and you're not, sucker. No, I'm just kidding. Or whatever. However you need to cope at that point.
Right.
But no, I think you can just, if you're secured, whatever, it's like, and authentic with yourself, it's like those things won't have as much of an effect. And that's not to say that you should go trash people, but which kind of leads to the second point, which I think people that are more, because like we were talking about with being insecure and that reducing authenticity, it's like I think people that are more authentic are just less likely to be lash out due to insecurity and just say like weird, crazy things, you know, if that makes sense.
That's actually a really good point. Yeah, like somebody could say something that has truth in it, and they sort of unleashed this nasty truth at you because they were feeling insecure about something. So they came and attacked you with something.
Well, and then usually that's not even an authentic thing. When someone's calling you ugly, you know, on the street, it's like that's not an authentic comment.
Yeah.
Like that's because they woke up with a big pimple on their face earlier that day and they felt really ugly.
Yeah.
So they're indirectly passing it on to somebody else because of something. So that's not authentic.
Yeah, it's like, why would you even say that? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so like I think authenticity actually reduces a lot of weird behavior that comes from people having repressed stuff in a lot of ways. So I think there's that. And then obviously, yeah, tact is a good thing. You know, it's like you don't need to, like, authenticity doesn't keep you from just withholding your opinion if it's something negative. Like that's not, you know, but if the time is appropriate to say something and you don't, like that's a failure of authenticity, I would say.
Yeah.
So you might need to tell someone their pie is terrible.
You might.
It probably doesn't come up very often, but
you know, I mean, that's what you're looking for when you're like a professional athlete. It's like you need your coach who's basically going to tell you everything you're doing wrong so that you can be the best athlete you can be, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. That actually reminds me, there was years ago, I want to say it was like in the 80s or 90s or something. Apparently, the Korean airline was Korean Airlines was like the highest risk of like airplane crashes in the world for like several years. And they listened to all of the like black box sort of radio recordings of like what was happening in these cockpits right before the plane crashed. And they realized that in a lot of those Asian cultures where there's a lot of honor, nobody ever wanted to speak out against the captain. And so the captain would make reasonable mistakes that like any pilot captain could make, but none of his crew would say anything about it.
Oh, wow.
They wouldn't be like, Captain, we're out of fuel and we're going to crash in an hour. They would be like, Captain, should we check out our fuel tanks? And the captain would be like, no, it's fine. Like, I'm sure that they're okay. And they wouldn't be like, but it's empty. They would just be like, oh, yes, Captain, you know.
There's flames coming out the side.
Should we see if the back of the plane has blown up? Why would we check for that? No reason. You know, it's like they couldn't just say that like, oh, Captain, I think you made a mistake there. Let me help you with that. It's like there was this weird thing where it was like, until death, we shall not like dishonor the captain, you know? And so it led to all these plane crashes, and they had to retrain all of their flight crews to be like, you just gotta say it or you're gonna die, you know, like just say the thing.
You want to live, right?
You know, like, yeah, just say the truth. We're not gonna worry about the whole like we embarrassed somebody issue anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And that was like a major cultural, you know, aspect that was like leading to dysfunctions of an entire industry, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that was, you know, the big thing that was making me think about all this was just how much, you know, the cultural stuff like gets in the way a lot of, you know, just, you know, because I think a lot of people's, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of lack of self-exploration that goes on, I think, just in general. But, you know, I think in that void that comes from the lack of self-exploration and interest, culture kind of like fills it up, you know? It's like if you ask like, you know, 17 out of 20 boys what their favorite video game now, they'll all say Fortnite, you know? It's like, do you really like Fortnite that much? Or is it just like that's what's, you know, soaking up the cultural attention in some sense, or, you know, it's what your friends do, which is cool. You know, it's like, it's nice to have shared interest, but, you know, it doesn't really lend itself to like individual personalities or, you know, these very distinctive, you know, people forming. It's like, I go to school, I play Fortnite, and I eat Taco Bell. I don't know, I'm picking on your brothers.
Describing people we know. You don't listen to this podcast. Yeah. I mean, that is a lot of the generation today. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, it creates these little homogenous people,
Yeah.
that are like built up behind, within culture. And so it's like, if you try to be authentic with someone like that, it's like they don't really have a lot to engage with, on their own, on their own turf. Where like, I mean, seeing kids that are raised, either in more loose environments or homeschooled or whatever, kids with special needs, it's like there's a lot more distinctive personalities going on in at all ages.
Yeah.
Just because they're, they've kind of stepped out through, whether it's, the homeschooling and being the school system, or special needs being, just kind of outside of a different realm. It's like they've kind of stepped outside of culture in a lot of ways. And so a lot of their personalities kind of shine through, it seems like, in more distinct ways. And yeah, it's really beautiful and cool to see.
Yeah.
I really appreciated it.
It's an interesting thought. Yeah. Like people might not be authentic because they're just going to quack like a duck like everybody else is doing, And yeah, that's totally, like, I'm thinking about how the internet has made it so that everybody can see the trends, Like you can see
more than ever. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you can see what's trending on Twitter or YouTube, or like everybody's watching or everybody's listening to Taylor Swift right now,
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, the Taylor Swift music tour, like, oh, this is trendy and everybody's jumping on it,
Yeah.
And it's like, do you really like her music, or does it just seem cool and everybody's into it? Like, I don't know. So yeah, it is interesting how people can just sort of change their minds like that.
Culture's like one of the best walls you can put around yourself.
Yeah.
And to keep you safe, I guess, It's like, don't stand out, don't be different.
Yeah.
And which is ironic, because it's like half the Disney movies are like, be yourself and authentic. And then everyone's like, what movie do you like? Disney.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the weird, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's always a weird paradox to me, but
yeah. I'm being myself by liking Disney, following my heart.
Yeah.
By liking the thing everybody else likes.
It's like, oh, how original.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't that from a movie? Oh, shoot. It's like someone was like saying something like, maybe it's like the meme of like how, when you say like the most popular opinion or whatever, and it's like, oh, how brave of you or something.
Oh, yeah.
I forget what it is exactly, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, what a brave and controversial thing to say. When someone says like something basic.
Somebody, yeah. It's like everybody likes that. Yeah.
Yeah. Or yeah. Someone will post something and be like, hot take, and then say like, Taylor Swift is the best artist ever. Like, what a brave yet controversial thing to say.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing to drink in the morning? Coffee. Wow, original.
Yeah.
It's like, now everybody drinks that. Yeah.
So anyway, that's where I'll wrap it up, I think.
Yeah. All right, people. It's time to be an authentic animal.
Authentic animal lover.
That means rolling in the dirt.
Yeah. Go get a service dog or cat.
Right. That's right. Pet that animal authentically.
Yeah. Build up your microbiome. All right.
Okay. Thanks for listening. Later, everybody.
Till next time. See ya.